History of my oldest ancestors of whom I am very proud descend. September 3rd, 1384, Dom Sancho Gomes do Avelar, my 21st grandfather, 2nd Lord of Interest and Estate of Cascais and its castle, squire, vassal of the king, took part in the defense of Lisbon, during the siege raised by the Castilians. Dom João I of Portugal, Lord of Interest and Estate of Quinta de Marim, Pharaoh, civil judge of Lisbon. Dom Sancho Gomes do Avelar, 2nd Lord of Interest and Estate of Cascais, squire, vassal of King Dom João I of Portugal, Lord of Interest and Estate of Quinta de Marim, Pharaoh, civil judge of Lisbon, was born in 1360 and died in 1438. He was the son of D. Gomes Lourenço do Avelar, 1st Lord of Cascais, Major Guard of King Dom Pedro I of Portugal and his ambassador to England, and paternal grandson of Lourenço Martins do Avelar and Dom Sancho Dias de Guarda. Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar was a Portuguese nobleman and magistrate of the 14th and 15th centuries, active in the court of King Dom João I. Family. Son of Dom Gomes Lourenço de Avelar, 1st Lord of Cascais, and his wife, name unknown. It is documented that he was a cousin of Lourenço Martins de Avelar, the legitimate son of the Master of the Order of São Bento de Avis Dom Frei Martin Martins de Avelar. This is what Manuela Branches de Soval says about his father. Dom Gomes Lourenço de Avelar, 1st Lord of Cascais, knight, vassal and chief guard of Dom Pedro I and his ambassador to England, Lord of Interest and Estate of Cascais and its castle, and chief mayor de Tavera by Dom Fernando I Master, above. So everything comes together: kinship, succession, patronymic, chronology and connections. To be Gomes Lourenço, who is documented as a minor son of Lourenço Martins, who he takes as his father in 1345. Gomes Lourenço de Avelar started out as a cleric. At the age of 17, he was a prebendary canon of the Cathedral of Lisbon and a priest. He had rations at the Church of Santa Maria de Sintra. Queen Dona Beatriz then requested an age exemption so that he could access a canonry and a church. Prebend in Coimbra, which the Pope accessed on August 31, 1353, when he was 20 years old. On May 3, 1364, he was already prebendary canon of Coimbra, chief priest of Stm de Sintra and abbot of S. Tiago da Torre de Moncorvo, as well as a family member and commensal of the infant Dom Fernando, when he was the beneficiary of a request to the Pope from the King Dom Pedro and the aforementioned Infante over the treasury of Coimbra and the possession of a canonicate and prebend in the Cathedral of Lisbon. He later abandoned religious life and was chief guard of the infant Dom Fernando, future king, and frontier of Cide Rodrigo. Due to disagreements with the king, in 1373 he took refuge in Castile and was with the Pope in the war he was waging on the Italian peninsula, and lost his assets, namely Cascais, which Dom João I returned to his son. But already in 1374, the Pope asked the Portuguese crown to return to Gomes Lourenço de Avelar the lands he had lost due to the services he had rendered to him. It is not known whether he returned or died in Rome. The name of his wife is also unknown, although it is known that she was buried in the Cathedral of Lisbon. Biography. Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar served as squire and was a vassal of King Dom João I. He was 2nd Lord of Quinta de Marim, on the edge of Pharaoh, and became, on March 19, 1384, 2nd Lord of Interest and Estate of the land and place of Cascais and its border with its castle, as mayor, and of Reguengos de Alges and Oeiras on September 20, 1384, all in succession to his father and lord, and of some houses in the Alcacova of Lisbon. He was from his father's house and from the said village, Cascais, by King Dom João I and met with him in the wars. On November 8, 1386, Dom João I of Portugal granted Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar, his vassal, the charter of a mill in Ribeira do Alvila, on the edge of Santarém, which belonged to the chapel established by the said Lourenço Martins de Avelar. In what had happened, that he was grinding oil, without paying anything to the crown, and that now he wanted to start grinding bread, for which he started paying. He was also civil judge of Lisbon between 1404 and 1407. About Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar and his father, Dom Gomes Lourenço do Avelar, this is how he refers to Afonso do Paco and Fausto de Figueiredo in the Donatérios de Cascais. After peace was concluded on March 19, 1373, between Portugal and Castile, Gomes Lourenço do Avelar rose up against King Dom Fernando, because he wanted to force him to hand over his son, to give him as a hostage to the Castilians. This led to his expulsion from the kingdom and the consecutive donation of the lordship of Cascais to Dom Enrique Manuel de Vilhena, by royal letter of June 7 of that year. As grantee of the municipality of Cascais, Gomes Lorenzo do Avelar approved, on September 1, 1371, the agreement concluded between the same municipality and that of Sintra, because of the assets that, in the territory of the former, belonged to the hospital and Gaferia of the latter. Dom Sancho Gomes de Avalar's father, Dom Gomes Lorenzo do Avelar, was a vassal of King Dom Fernando I of Portugal, who gave him the castle and lands of Cascais, thus becoming the first lord of Cascais and governor of that castle. Dom Fernando first wanted the young Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar to be handed over to Henry II of Castile as a hostage, as per a clause in the Santarém peace treaty. As such, the young Dom Sancho was hidden and not handed over to the Castilian monarch. Fernando Lopez never mentions the young man's real name. He is always referred to as the son of Gomes Lorenzo de Avelar. For not allowing his son to be handed over to Enrique II as a hostage, Dom Gomes Lorenzo de Avelar was exiled and his properties in Portugal were confiscated, including the landlord of Cascais, and then a quarrel began between Dom Fernando and Dom Gomes Lorenzo de Avelar. And continues on. Sancho Gomes do Avelar, lord of the aforementioned Quinta de Maria, of some houses in the Alcacova of Lisbon and of the chapel established by his cousin Lorenzo Martins do Avelar, in the monastery of Santa Clara, in Santarém. He was the son, as we have seen, of Gomes Lorenzo do Avelar, first lord of Cascais, took part in the defense of Lisbon, on the occasion of the siege raised by the Castilians on September 3, 1384. And was a grantee of the same landlord, in the period between the aforementioned royal charter of the 20th of that month, which granted it and which restored it, in 5th of the same month of the immediate year, to his predecessor, Dom Enrique Manuel de Vilhena. In the hermitage of Conceição de Ababada, a small place in the parish of São Domingos de Rana, and therefore within the municipality of Cascais, there is still a tomb that was ordered to be built, with the pious caption under this Pedra Iez Gera Qve de Terra se Yerov en Terra se Jornov, by the commander of Algoso Fray Goncalo de Azevedo, great-grandson, by Veronia, of the famous Duarte de Almeida, the Desapado, and Maria de Azevedo, his wife, who was a granddaughter, maternally, Gui Omar Goncalves de Azevedo, and her husband, Sancho Gomes do Avelar, the third lord of Cascais. A daughter of these same couples, named Inés Gomes do Avelar, married, in turn, the first Almates Moor of the kingdom, Pero Lorenzo de Almeida, and a son, João Gomes do Avelar, took part in the unsuccessful Tangier expedition, in IFA 37, and was one of the first victims to die in Morocco, during the bitter captivity of the Infante Saint, Dom Fernando. About Avelar's weapons. The weapons of Avelar are identical to the weapons of Sobrel. About this, Manuel de Abranches de Sobrel mentions. Estevio Dias de Maris, he was the first to order the shield of arms common to the Avelar and Sobrel. According to legend, referred to in particular by Manso de Lima, he defeated 3 Moorish kings in battle, which led him to reorder their coat of arms in this way, in a gold field, old nobility, 3 bands of red carried with the 5, later became 3, silver stars of their original arms, those of the Ribaduros, in a blue field, 5 gold stars. In quotation marks, with 6, 7 or 8 points. Further on it describes, Estevio Dias must have been injured in a single combat, so the crest is 3 swords stuck in the viral. Taking into account the oldest heraldry of this lineage, it seems possible to conclude that the original stars were 8-pointed, as they appear in the tomb of Dom Martin de Avelar, who died after 1364. The Sovrels, by contrast, used the 6-point stars from the 13th century sigillar matrix, identified by the Marquis of Abrantes, from Dona Inés Fernández, daughter of Dona Inés Fernández. Fernando Martins de Sovrel. Family and descent. Dom Sancho Gomes de Avelar married, before 1404, Dona Guiomar Goncalves de Azevedo, my 21st grandmother, from whom he had 3 daughters and a son. Dona Inés Gomes de Avelar, successor, on March 11, 1452, Dom Afonso V of Portugal, donated to Dona Inés Gomes de Avelar, wife of Dom Pedro Lourenço de Almeida, knight of his house and Almates Moor, an annual tenant of 6,000 silver reais, married to D. Pedro Lourenço de Almeida, who died after March 11, 1460, Almates Moor do Reino, lord of Quinta de Villar-Corca, on the edge of Viseu, in front of which Dom Afonso V of Portugal allocated a river, having succeeded at Quinta de Marim in 1445. And at the chapel established by Lourenço Martins de Avelar on September 6, 1448 and April 15, 1457, had an annual tenance of 4,358 silver reais on July 17, 1450, without generation. Dom João Gomes de Avelar died before April 15, 1457, single, without generation. Dona Guiomar Gomes de Azevedo, nun at the Tarouquela Monastery. Dona Leonor Gomes de Azevedo, my 20th grandmother, deceased before April 15, 1457, married to Dom Álvaro Rodrigues Valente, 1st Lord of Lusa, my 20th grandfather, deceased before April 15, 1457, of these was a daughter. Dona Maria de Azevedo, my 19th grandmother, raised by her maternal aunt Dona Inés Gomes de Avelar, who named her by deed of May 9, 1457 and Royal Charter of March 11, 1460, and who was her heir by deed on November 8, 1457, marrying Duarte de Almeida, the Desapado, my 19th grandfather, with a known generation.